I assume you clicked on this video because you wanted to create your own LoR deck, and luckily for you, this video will explain exactly that. I can promise you, at the end of the video, you will know everything you need in order to create your very own gem in LoR. So let's get started. Before we start off with any specifics, let's go over the main steps you will need to consider when building a deck. Also, if you need specific help with any of these points, feel free to skip to them with the pinned comment. For any deck that you're building, you will go through 5 main steps. Step 1. What's the idea your deck is based around? Step 2. Assemble the core cards of your deck. Step 3. Plug the holes in the core with synergy cards. Step 4, which is optional. Calculate the early game if you're hardcore about the quality of the deck. Step 5. Refine what you've built so far by playing around with your card options. Alrighty, after you hopefully had a good idea about what you will need to do, let's dive straight into the fun with step 1. What's the idea your deck is based around? In this phase, you want a reason why your deck should exist in the first place and why you're creating it. Let's say you recently discovered that nobody's playing Nami, but you think that with the newly introduced card Gem Crafter, this deck is very much viable at the moment. So, your idea is to buff up your elusive cards with Nami and the Gem Crafter and win off of that mechanic. That would be a decent idea, as there's not a lot of elusive decks going around nowadays and the value you get is good. This of course is only an example, and there are many great ideas just like this waiting to be discovered by players like you. If you need a tip on how to come up with a good idea, try thinking about these 2 points. Is there anything lacking in the current meta that you can create and works well? And is there a deck that does the same as your idea but better? The first point obviously is a good sign. The second one though is a good sign you should try to come up with a different idea. Now that we've figured out the reason for the deck to exist, we need to figure out the core of the deck. AKA, you need to build out your ideas as a concrete win condition. Building the core is rather simple but a vital part to building your deck. You now want to figure out the cards you can never cut from your deck to keep the main win condition alive. Here, you also need to figure out your supporting region if you don't already have a clear idea on what this would be. As for the Nami deck, we don't have that problem as we are already locked in the target region with the Gem Crafter. Now, looking at the deck again, our core would be these cards. The Wiggly Burblefish and the Fleet Admiral Shelly are no-brainers for any spell-heavy elusive deck, the Double Trouble works like a charm for any Nami deck, and Zoe is always a very decent 1-drop as she gives you even more spells to play around with. As you can see, Mind Melt and Spell Thief are also part of the core, as Spell Thief is straight up broken, giving you situational spells you will always need, such as Vengeance, and Mind Melt is meant as a secondary finisher if you didn't win with the elusive value. And generally speaking, while building your core, try not to go above 25 cards, so you can actually build from your core instead of having a full deck already. Now that we have our core assembled, we can move on to step 3, creating an actual deck with our given cards. We are trying to include cards that work well with our core and address any issues our deck still has. You might be missing draw, in actual early game, hard removal, survivability, or all of the above. I personally try going through all of the categories one by one and addressing them individually. As an example, we don't run any denies in our deck, meaning we are very easily killable by just killing our low health units. Also, we are missing draws and survivability. To fix this, I will include Guiding Touch and Pale Cascade, fixing 2 of our problems in one sweep. Now, as I think we could still use some more draws, let's also include Eye of Naga and 1 Zap Spray Fin. And concerning draws, we are fine. Looking at our early game though, we are definitely not fine. At this point you can already start looking at point 4 and try to calculate with what chances you will actually get your early game cards. But as a general rule of thumb, you at least want 10, 1, 2 or 3 drops depending on what you're playing, to make sure you're not going to suffer a sad death in the early game. Looking at our list here, we're now going to include Asmos and Winged Messenger that in combination with our other cards, like Double Trouble, should provide a decent early combo to stay alive. If you want to know the actual chances, I can only recommend Aster Hub, but this is not necessarily needed depending on what your level of seriousness is that you're aiming for with this deck. With a few more additions, we'll finish up the deck and move on to our final step. After we've created our deck, you might run into the issue that you're running above the 40 cards limit, or you're just not quite happy with what you've created so far. So now's your time to address all of these issues. Either discard your deck and try again starting with your core, or play around by cutting cards and including different ones that might be better suited. You also want to think about the current meta here, maybe including 1 or 2 cards that are a great counter to decks you frequently run into. Even though this shouldn't be your main concern, as your deck should be strong enough at this point to withstand most matchups. And that's all there is to it. There's no magic involved and no professional knowledge required. Before we finish up the video, let me add a few things as a disclaimer though, or rather, a friendly tip. If you're just messing around and want to create a meme deck, honestly don't fuss over the details and rather enjoy doing whatever you feel like is more fun to you. I as an example love Miria, so I created a second meme version of this deck running that and threw most of my own tips out of the window just because I felt like playing a bit of a silly one. Moreover, if most of what I said seems scary to you and it sounded like too much work, just go for it. Instead of focusing on the small details, as long as you're roughly following the 5 steps, you're going to be fine and you can always go back to make your deck perfect later. Lastly, let's go over the steps one more time, and I will also include a graphic in the description you can download as an easy guide so you don't need to rewatch the whole video every time you forget one step. Recapping, we have Step 1. What's the idea your deck is based around? Step 2. Assemble the core cards of your deck. Step 3. Plug the holes in the core with the synergy cards. Step 4, which is still optional, calculate the early game if you're hardcore about the quality of the deck. And step 5, refine what you've built so far by playing around with your card options. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a fantastic day. If you still have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and if you're still unsure about what to build, how about watching a guide on a different off-meta deck?